Usually.
We go to the cinema.
Yes.
Usually.
However, sometimes.
Yesterday we went to the theater.
The theater.
The theater.
Yes.
Yeah, the local theater did a lovely, turned out to be musical version of Pride.
I knew it was a musical.
I didn't know.
I bought the tickets.
Yeah, but I was
literally like, okay, there's Pride and Prejudice. Do you want to go? And she's
yes. That's all I need to know.
So it's like, I was about to say, it's in Dutch, it's a musical.
I don't care. I
didn't get time to say that. It was just like, yes, we're going.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a musical.
Who would not want to go to Pride and Prejudice, you know? It's classic.
It's classic, yes.
Yes.
The musical, so for people who are a little less known with our channel, Dutch would have been a Dutch musical because local theatre is going to be Dutch, so it's going to be in Dutch. It wasn't Dutch.
Yes, but it's not a local company. No. It's a company that is touring the Netherlands.
Yeah, but in the Netherlands, they would be in Dutch.
And we happen to live in one of those towns that very often we get the thing. That is right before they go to Amsterdam, we get it.
We either get it right at the beginning of the tour
or
right at the end of the tour. I think this is actually the tail end of the tour.
Or the middle.
No,
there's
it's the tail
20 end. More.
There's like 10
or
more.
20 in total.
Yeah, there's.
I don't know.
I hope to get this video out.
I know they're going
next
to the
week.
Meervaart after this, which is in
if
Amsterdam.
This video comes out next week, then you will be able to still get tickets for a couple of more shows, and then it's over.
So that will be the fastest turnaround. No, we have done the 1 week turnaround before.
Yes.
Yes, but not often. No. So that would be the fastest turnaround that
we'll
we do. Because yesterday we went to the theatre. Today we're filming, and if we get it out next week, then
we'll be very, very happy.
Then somebody, like 2 people out there, could actually go. But yes, I would say buy your ticket now.
Yes. Stop watching and buy your ticket.
Yes. Pause this, buy the ticket, and then come back. And, but we're going to spoil it, but we're going to... if you haven't you've had 2 centuries to read Pride and Prejudice.
Yes.
So let's
more
be
than 2
here.
centuries. It's 210 years.
210 years. Thank you very much. So it can't really be in the spoilerific range.
Yeah, I think we can say it's not in the spoilerific range. I think we probably should say something about Dutch musical first, because yes, this is a Dutch musical. We have a long tradition in musicals, and so I was not at all surprised that this was a musical. I was not surprised or annoyed or anything like that. No. This part and parcel of Dutch stuff is that you get music with stuff, and sometimes you get a drama that happens to have songs in it, but this is straight up a musical. There's dancing, there's singing, there is a lyrical progression of the story with the singing. So musical. And one of the things that a Dutch musical has learned over many years, with the start of Annie M. G. Schmid used to do it, is have a opening number that sets the scene of when and where and sometimes why. If you do it right, if you do it right, everything is in that opening number, and it is the number that is meant for theater, because this theater production is different from a film in the way you present it. And one of the things to start off is that people come in from the outside. You come from the daytime sometimes to the dark, and it's very sudden. So this opening number is usually to get you settled, to get you warmed up, to give you background of when and where and why are we doing this, to give you a start on a general theme of the story.
When Shakespeare got good, he did that as well. And in Romeo and Juliet, it is very clear. There's an actual opening prologue, and it says the stage is now the streets of Verona, and we have the 2 factions. So it explains everything. So suddenly you want to not... In writing, you want to do show, don't tell, because you want people to start to experience and discover things. Whereas there's a point where it's just tell them, be clear, so that we can actually get the story.
Yeah, and
you have the context to your story.
And another difference with theater versus film is that in a film you can do like a vista.
You do that with visuals.
A nice vista. And whereas on a stage, you basically have the stage, and you cannot do a scene transition the way you do it in a film. You cannot do just suddenly from Paris to London. You can't do that. All you can do is move a block of scenery around, which is what they usually do, or change the light. And then you have to get your context from something else. And this
but you can do in theater. You can do things that you can't do in film, or rarely do in film. Is you can have two scenes going on the stage, because the stage is usually wider, taller and wider than lots of people. So in the one part of the stage you have this scene going on, the other part of the stage you have that scene going on, and between lighting and the choosing when the dialogues are happening, you can do, and they more often do, a really interesting integrated two scenes happening
at the same time
with different characters, and then boom, they collide again in the middle. And I love that kind of stuff.
Yes, so this production did that. It does a great opening number, or it does an opening number. I'll come to some of the contents back, because there's a lot to be said, and. The other thing that's interesting about this production is that it is just 5 ladies. That's it. 5 ladies, and for the people who know the story, it's about 5 girls, so that makes sense. But you have, like, every lady has a gentleman, and there's a father and a mother, and there's another gentleman. And who are going to be playing those? Well, these same 5 ladies. Which is in a film that would be very complicated. On stage it happens to be very simple if you think about it in a stage kind of way. Because
they did it right. You can do it wrong, but this was so cleverly done, and it had to do with the costumes they were wearing, because the costuming was like it was like the really good undergarments of what these girls could be wearing in about 1810. And then over it, they could put a small thing to create an idea of a dress in a color, and an idea of a coat in another color. And by very simple and just a hat. Nothing complex.
Yeah. Basically, they changed from the girl who played Jane, wearing the undergarments and a blue sort of a dress that you put on with 2 buttons, and then can take off again, and it was open at the front. And then she took it off, and then she put on a red military coat and put on a hat, and suddenly she's Wickham. And it's all in comportment, because she just went up.
It's all in the acting.
It's all in the acting.
Yeah. And
it's very simple to do. And that works on stage so well. And they worked this so well throughout just the entire thing, that you can actually mix up the scenes in a way that you wouldn't be able to do it on a film. And that worked really well. I really love that.
And an incredible amount of actual characters are shown, because when they started I was like, oh yeah, okay, I got the 5 women, and so I guess we're not going to see the guys, because they're going to be off screen like in The Women, because that's absolutely possible. There's 2 movies of The Women, one from the 1939 off the top of my head, and one from the
50s, but
the 50s, but there's also one from the 2010s. And so that was all women, only women.
The 50s one, they actually had the men coming in.
And the 50s one, they couldn't manage it. But the other ones, they could manage that. So, and I was like, I had my whole thing. It's like, okay, this is brilliant, because you have all the Shakespeares in the day and age of Shakespeare, and a good deal later. There were no female actors, and so what they did is that you're now the woman, you're Romeo, you're Juliet. I mean,
you're skinny and young. You're Juliet.
Yeah, exactly. You push your voice up higher, and then off you go, and you get a wig and you get a dress, and they got very good at that. that because that was all there was, and there wasn't a choice to have women on the stage, especially not of the royal stage, because it was completely unseemly and
it was forbidden.
Yeah,
it was
actually
even forbidden.
Okay, actually law. Okay, fine. But also it was completely unseemly, so you would have been ruined to be on the stage.
Yeah.
And then they did that. So why can't we, why not do it this way? The moment one of them put on a hat and a coat, and I was like, okay, yes. Now we're cooking. This is it. This is how it's gonna be.
Yes.
And I immediately said I want to see more of that. I want to see their next show. I want to see all of them because, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And sorry for all the good-looking men out there, but women in top hats. Look.
Oh, that was the most handsomest, sexiest Wickham I've ever seen.
And Darcy.
And Darcy
and
Bingley.
Yeah.
And Mr. Collins was also.
That actress did such a good job.
Yeah.
Putting that. That's very Dutch. Staging this guy who is actually quite reprehensible, and showing how reprehensible he was, but also showing that he thinks he's completely and utterly in the right.
Yes.
And why doesn't Elizabeth just say yes on this? And they actually, the scene where she says no and he says, oh, but women
always say no
because they mean yes, and all I need to do is wait for a yes. That was actually quite long, and I thought
it's in the book.
Is it in the book?
Oh yeah.
I thought this is so good that they draw that out, because that was the prejudice at the time. He wanted it, therefore she will want him, and he had the money.
If he persists, yes.
And so he's gonna get his way. His entire life has been like that, and that's what men get, is they get their way. And she's like, no. We do have to talk about Elizabeth, because she is so... she has an enormous amount of agency. She has very good expression of herself. I thought being able to express yourself at the right moment, in the right way, to that person when it's happening that's what most people can't manage, and that's her brilliance.
That is also the brilliance of the original book. So the play saw that and took it with them. They did something special that we have to mention here. Is that they because she has because a book is not a play, and a book is a lot of thought and talk about, which is where in a play you can't do that. So this inner dialogue, of which she has quite a lot, what do you do with it? And what they did was, because they have the 5 actresses who are already playing several different parts, that they, in a way, interchangeable is not the right word for it, but they are interchanging their roles. They are also chorusing Elizabeth, they keep calling her Elizabeth in this thing, Elizabeth's inner thoughts. So whenever she has a moment alone and to think about it, what do I feel about this Darcy guy, all of a sudden there's 5 voices on stage giving each the different aspects of, but he's so proudful, but but he's so handsome, says the other person.
And then am I that shallow? Yeah, actually I am that shallow.
And that is a unique thing that really works well on a stage. Yeah. I thought that was so...
And that, when you come back to that establishing scene at the beginning, the song at the beginning, where they are on what looks like a bed, kind of an elevated bed, and it's all the 5 of them, and they're saying, I'm Lizzy, I'm Liz, I'm Eliza, I'm Elizabeth, I'm Elle. And they go, and me, and me, and me, and they take the time at every turn at this play. They take their time to establish something, and to establish a new character and a new storyline. But in the beginning, when they establish, all the girls can be the voices of Elizabeth when they don't have an extra dress over, and then they take us by the hand effectively and introduce them as the sisters and put the dresses on. so that we understand everybody's color-coded, which is very helpful, and especially at a distance.
Elizabeth is the only one who is just wearing her undergarments, and that's it. Everybody else is wearing undergarments and something over it, and then something else for different...
To signify who they are playing at that moment.
Yeah, and right at the end, which is... Spoiler, but... I don't think you're gonna...
How can you spoiler this thing? It's 200 years old.
Yeah, okay, but this is a spoiler for the thing, is that right at the end, when she comes to her conclusion, she is the one who gets the final dress. Yeah. So I'm not going to spoil which dress it is, but that final dress. She gets... That's when she gets dressed. She gets dressed. It's the only time that actress gets dressed, and that is Anouk Maas plays Lizzie. So we have I'm going to go through it. Anouk Maas plays Lizzie. Tessa Suniva plays Jane and Charlotte and Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Anouk Snell plays Lydia, Mrs. Bingley, and Mr. Collins. Greatest Mrs. Scholar ever. Yeah. Kemi Hoymeyer plays Mary, which is a very short part, the mother, and Mr. Darcy.
Yeah, so Mary gets sent off stage immediately.
They don't have time for her.
Because they need mom.
Yeah.
The mother needs to be there, and that's the main part that actress plays. Yeah. And she throws herself into because, the mom is the one who is... all over the top, more over the top than everybody else. Even Mr. Bingley.
And then Iris Vermaak plays Kitty and Mr. Wickham, and I also think that she plays Mr. Bingley, but I had to extrapolate some of the parts because there's not a proper list of who plays what. Mm-hmm. It's an ensemble cast, but it's I like to know. I really liked to know that the Lydia and Miss Bingley and Mr. Collins was the same actress. I enjoyed the changeover from one to the other. I liked that.
Yeah. And Miss Bingley wasn't there that long, but she was to have her in there next to Mr. Darcy. Gives and also to talk to Elizabeth, of course, gives more context around what the social situation is literally locally, because later Elizabeth gets from Lady Catherine de Bourgh, she gets pie in the face effectively, and she gives back pie in the face later, but to have Miss Bingley actually show how everybody looks down on the Bennets is a good juxtaposition between her and Lady Catherine de Bourgh. It's already made clear in practically every in interaction they have with everybody else. But going with the local, the Bingleys are far higher. They have far more money.
And she let her know. And
that's another thing they did very well, literally from the get-go, is to show how everybody is weighed in their monetary value, their yearly income monetary value. Yeah.
The problem with this entire concept for... it's both a positive thing and a negative thing. To have this concept as a Dutch musical is that you have a cultural gap. There's also the already 200-year gap, which is within England already a cultural gap. They have, even English people have to get explanations for some of the stuff. But and if you're also in the Netherlands, you have to get double explanation. And the musical did realize that, and they're doing something about it.
That was actually a question we had beforehand, is how are they going to stage and contextualize this in such a short amount of time, and then also get through the entire story.
And not really skip the important part.
Yeah, there's not much you can skip. That's the thing.
And basically I had made a list of the scenes that they must do, and they realized they must do them. You have to do the opening line.
Yeah.
Because, and then did a translation of that. I'll come to translation in a second. And you have to do the declaration of Darcy towards Lizzy, and then her rejection of him, and of course how they got there. But you have to do the actual scene.
His objectional offer of marriage.
Yes, and you must do Lady Catherine de Bourgh visiting Longbottom the second time.
I was actually surprised that was going to be in it. I thought that surely they're going to skip that.
No, but you need that.
Speed. Yeah, but they managed to do it.
And then for plot lines, plotline that I was worried they were going to skip was the Wickham and Georgina and Lydia plotline, which that is a complicated bit of storytelling that you do need to do, otherwise it doesn't work. They did it, so they did all the things they needed to do. There's a however to that. Basically, everything else is just juxtapositions towards these scenes. These scenes are the ones that they have the most authentic lines in them. These are not sung. They're almost none of those are sung. I think they are actually the probably straight from an earlier translation of the book, because famously on the PR list there is no writer to this thing. There is no book. Nobody wrote this book. As in script, there's a music writer. There's no. I think they've lifted a lot. I hope they lifted a lot of from the older translation, because the lines of these scenes that I mentioned, they're good. They're very highbrow good. Whereas most of the other stuff, like the music, is very contemporary with now, not contemporary with then. So you have the contemporary with then stuff versus the contemporary with now stuff, and some modern concepts about women, which...
I don't know if you like it or not. I loved it.
I loved it.
I loved it,
but it has issues. I think it has. Okay. Well, I think it has issues.
Can talk about the issues. Let me first gush how absolutely amazing and wonderful it is, because they brought it in the here and now, and they being Elizabeth, addresses the audience, and she's like, "Hey, this is." People were worthless in those days. Women were worthless. They were actually only worth the money that they literally that came in for them every year, or a dowry. She didn't mention a dowry, but there would be that as well.
Yeah, that's the dowry part. Yes,
and they mention what everyone's worth. As they do in...
But it's all passive income worth. Even the men have passive income worth. Nobody's working.
The nobility class, and that wasn't mentioned in the whole thing.
It's gentry. This is gentry.
Is not nobility.
It's just under...
Darcy.
Is gentry.
Lady de Bourgh is
it's
nobility.
on the cusp, yeah.
And Darcy is her nephew.
Yeah, but
so
he does not have a title.
He does not. Yeah. So then, they were in the beginning. They were even going, somebody next door moving in is an esquire. Now esquire is actually not a nobility title.
It's gentry.
It's gentry. It's but for gentry they should be able to work. That's the thing. But
no, that's
just
trade.
Enough that you can't
that's
work.
Trade. That's the gentry. The gentry, and this is the problem. Okay, so let's come to the actual
class system.
Come to the actual problem of that this thing has is that we us modern people, including British, have forgotten how it worked in 200 years ago with this gentry class. This gentry class has disappeared. We don't have that anymore.
So it's above the bourgeoisie.
But below
the nobility class.
Yes. They are the landed gentry. They have land, and their income comes from having land, and which you then rent out and take an income from. That's what they're talking about. The £10,000 a year, the £2,000 a year is a passive income from interest over
capital, probably invested in land and land income.
Yes, but nobody works, and that is something that we don't understand anymore in that way. One of the things that people always get wrong about this about Pride and Prejudice is that people think, oh, it's a rags to riches story. A poor Lizzy lands the Prince Darcy.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
It is not a Cinderella story.
She is Gentry also. She happens to be on the poorer side of Gentry.
Yeah, she lives on the poor side of the street.
But she doesn't have to work, and she really doesn't have to worry about money as such. Even if
she's not allowed to work.
She's not allowed to work. In fact, Jane Austen, who wrote the story, actually had Lizzy's situation, but a little bit worse. And she had a gentleman, and her gentleman died, and then she had nobody, and she had to go live with her brother, and she wasn't allowed to actually earn any money. Her very first novel, which is Sense and Sensibilities, was published as By a Lady. And she I don't think she even got any money for that one. For this one, she got money because the brother actually got a little poorer and they needed money. So she sold Pride and Prejudice 10 years after Sensibility, and it was published as by the author of Sense and Sensibility, so not under her name. And she got a flat rate for it of about, I think it was £100, which is now £5,000, which she was very happy with. But there was no way she could actually draw an income from this. That's not how it worked. And everybody was sort of scandalized that she even wanted money.
And the only reason probably they did it is because the brother had run out of money as well.
Yeah. So basically this is Lizzy's...
Next stage is you become a governess. So now we're in Jane Eyre territory, which is a little later. It's about 50 years later.
In Mansfield Park, which is a Jane Austen often, there is a lady who would have been that kind of governess. Yeah. And they're all the gentry class. They're all the same class.
The governesses never are thrown in with the servants. Ever. You are a different status, a different class. You have education. And the fact that Jane Eyre, now I'm rowing off on Jane Eyre, but she actually got herself an education, and it's the only thing that family did for her that pretty much wanted to throw her away. Preferably die in that school.
Yeah. Because they were not going to give her any money. They were not going to.
So they gave her that boarding school, and that got her an education, and that meant she could be a governess, and she would never have to clean for a living.
Because she is the wrong class for cleaning.
Yeah, that too. And so she couldn't even revert to cleaning for a living.
Yeah. So this is not a rags to riches story, and I understand that in a Dutch context, for the people who made this musical, to make this a story of women's suffrage, basically.
Yeah.
I understand it, but I have an issue with the press release.
Oh, what's the press release?
Here.
It's the world premiere. This musical will first be seen in the Netherlands and then will be seen in the United States. I guess you all can go see it. I hope with this cast, they're awesome.
And I hope with somebody who actually goes over the text in English, because there's the opening song. Let's start with the opening song, because I had an issue with that straight away.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
This opening song is called Elizabeth's England.
I was wondering very much. I was sitting there going, okay, what do we mean? I think they mean Elizabeth Bennet, England. However, Elizabeth's England means...
either Elizabeth I England, which is 15 something to
2 centuries earlier,
or the number 2,
Elizabeth II, who has recently died. So the 1950s through the 2020s.
No, and that was the first part. The second part is the second line. The second line.
Yeah, but you can never translate directly. You have to rewrite it if you go from one language.
But you have to realize that. Yeah. Second line also goes even worse. It's actually worse. The second line, I can look up what the line is because it's in the trailer. It says something like the poor people of England and stuff like. It talks about poor people of England in a book.
It's not in
that is about the upper class. Yeah, it's about the Kardashians. It's about the Kardashians of that time. And you're talking about
very low Kardashians, but Lady Catherine de Bourgh and Darcy are upper Kardashians.
There is nobody low born in it. Even Wickham. talk about
Yes,
Wickham,
let's talk
because
about Wickham.
Wickham,
Very interesting character.
Yes, because the story he appears to be much put upon, and some of it he did himself, but even so, he was badly treated by Darcy's father, who had sort of adopted him. He was, like I said, they are all the same class, including Wickham. So Darcy's
but he
dad
seems to have lost his family. Maybe
Yeah, but
he
that
became
happens.
an orphan.
It's same thing as Jane Eyre. You
You
are
get slotted to Uncle so and so.
so uncle once removed takes you on, and then you have expectations. It's called expectations. He expected to earn to inherit a little bit of money, not Darcy money, but like a tenth of that maybe, and that's still a lot of money. But then he does something very stupid, which then is explained later. But it was stupid, and then Mr. Darcy Senior throws him out, and that's what you hear in this play, and what you will usually hear in the several films. That's not quite what happened. What Mr. Darcy Senior did was let the guy go to the next thing that a high.
Yes. You do that with the spare sons as well.
The spare sons that there's not enough money for, but you go to the army and buy him
a commission.
Yes, you pay money for it.
The commission that is an officer's title.
And so Wickham,
so he will have a good income from being an officer in the military.
But it will have been bought for him by Darcy Senior.
Yes, and that's how you cart away annoying young men.
So Wickham, who says I've been done badly by, is lying because he was not done that badly by, because Darcy did buy him a proper commission. He could have also bought him a what do you call that? A place in the clergy. But Wickham obviously didn't want that. Mr. Collins got the clergy
with
kind
the
of thing.
Scandal that he was leaving behind, that nobody would consider him for the clergy.
But to go to the army was very reputable, and Mr. Darcy did right by him. So that is one of those details that in this version will get lost. There's a lot of details.
Well, you can't get all the details in an hour and a half.
The problem is that they got so few details in. They got the few scenes that they should have gotten in, and they got them in properly, but that's it.
But you're saying even the other versions didn't properly say that the commission, the fact that he's in the military as an officer, that already means that he's been sponsored.
Yeah, but there's like the thing about the book is that there's like 1,000 little details like that, and you have to include them. And there's some that they included, like the Miss Bingley. Miss Bingley gets a chance to have a jibe at Lizzy in this thing as well for being not good enough, and there's a lot of that in the book, which is like a lot, and they condensed it into one little line.
That's why I said it's really good that they had not just Lady Catherine, because it's clearly Lady Catherine is so on high, blah blah blah, and she's also older, and she's watching out for her nephew, and all of that. But Miss Bingley next door also does not want to see the Bennets at all. She does actually like Amy. What's the girl's name that was lying sick in the bed? She does
Jane.
like Jane.
Everybody likes Jane.
But everybody likes Jane.
But okay, so there's another scene which is an important scene in the book, and they sort of in this version they actually took the dance at Marriton, which is where Lizzy and Darcy actually meet for the first time properly. They split it up in two parts because I understand, that's fine. The important thing about the dance at Marriton is details. Darcy is perceived as being prideful, and why is that? It's sort of, for many versions it comes out of nowhere because people are not reading the subtext, which is actual subtext in the book as well, because you're supposed to be part of the culture and you're supposed to know. In 1800, if you were a young lady and you wanted to meet a young gentleman because you had to get married, otherwise you had no income, you had to meet a gentleman. Where would you meet a gentleman? It would be at a dance, so you go to a dance. But a lady is not supposed to actually talk to a gentleman unless and until she is invited to stand up and dance. How do you get invited to stand up and dance? A man comes to you and invites you to dance.
Yeah.
If you're in Marriton and all the gentlemen are off to war because it's 1800 and England is pertinently at war, and you're in the country, so there's more ladies than gentlemen, you have to wait for a gentleman to come. So a gentleman comes, Mr. Bingley, brings in Mr. Darcy. Wonderful. It's 2 more people who can actually come stand up and dance with you. And then Mr. Darcy comes in and says, I just don't feel like it. I'm sorry. No.
In this one, he says, I'm not a good dancer.
It doesn't matter what his excuse is. That's the problem. His excuse doesn't matter. He is now making the extremely bad social faux pas of not standing up and letting these gals get up and dance. His job when he comes to the dance is to do that. If he doesn't do that, he shouldn't have come to that dance. Yeah. And that is why he's prideful, because of his attitude of not doing what the social etiquette wants. And you have to realize when you read the book and the time is that the social etiquette trumps everything else, to the point that the vivacious personality of Lizzy, she needs to suppress that because it's not fashionable to be vivacious and lively. It's fashionable to be agreeable and nice, like Jane.
Jane is the perfect girl.
And so Lizzy has to suppress her vivacious personality, and Lydia too, but Lydia simply doesn't do that, and that is why she's such an horror socially, because she doesn't do what is socially acceptable. And in a way that we don't understand how important it is. Now we do whatever we want, basically, and we sort of go, screw it, if you don't like it.
We fought for 100 years for the right to be ourselves, and it is in this thing is they talk about I get to be myself. I in the beginning I do not get to be myself because that is just not going to happen. You're cattle in a cattle market, even though it has a nice bow around it, and you're a breeding cow. So that these things are mentioned, just to make it really, really clear to the audience. And at the end, it's like, okay, I can still make I have progressed to make my own decisions, and that's the feminist statement of it. Yes, she's still marrying the prince, not the prince, because he's not even a nobleman, but he's very, very rich. So he's marrying like the local billionaire.
£10,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, hello. No, this is definitely like billionaire romance, which is currently a genre in romance fiction. Getting back to Lydia, in this thing you get introduced to all the sisters. However, the ages of the sisters are not mentioned. In every version that we see, they say that Kitty is the second youngest and that Lydia is the youngest. Yeah, okay, but they don't say that means 15.
Yeah,
or
because that's then another thing that and that's quite a lot of the versions do show that is that the mother is also making a gross faux pas in a social faux pas, because on the whole, when you have many daughters, like the first 1 or 2 should be on the marital market. That's and then you marry them off, and then the next couple will go on if you have so many, and she has like 5. No, she's sort of going, no, everything at once, because I'm going to throw out all my bait to all the eligible fishes out there, and that is so greedy. It's tacky. She's tacky.
It's considered very bad form. But in this one, it is actually prefaced by Jane, although the perfect girl and everybody loves her, she's too shy to even meet a man. So that's problematical. Even if she does meet a man, she doesn't open up her mouth. So she's that shy. She's introverted and shy. Then you've got Elizabeth, which in this one is considered to be far too outspoken and headstrong. Now we know that she is outspoken and headstrong, but normally in the most versions only when she is forced to actually voice it. In this one, she's just all throughout, and that's perfect for this kind of show. Then you have the middle one,
Mary, which is skippable.
They skipped because Mary just wants to read.
She doesn't have a plot line.
She's just not interested. So I don't think that the mom thinks number one is I can't get her to talk to a guy. Number 2 and number 3 are unmarriageable for completely, those reasons. And so I must have number 4 and 5 on the market because
Kitty's a non-entity?
They want, but they were both screaming over the guys.
Yes.
And so they want the guys, they're interested, they're just too young and stupid to know what it all means. Because they are, in reality, 15 and 16 or 15 and 14 even.
I think Lydia's 15 at the end.
Very young.
Yeah.
And
too young.
So,
too young.
Yes, you hype it all up because their entire lives is around... The thing that's going on in their lives is only, what man are you going to marry? It is not, do you get a good education? Although they do say you have to be good at everything. You have to be good at sewing, not cooking, obviously, because that needs to be done for you. Embroidery, music, poetry, although her poetry is being looked down on at the same time.
The thing about all these accomplishments is that they are to facilitate getting a husband. It's to please him, to make her and a desirable bride for him to socially show around that she has enough accomplishments, that she can play the piano in the right way, or if he has a group that is interested in art, that she can make art in the right way. It has nothing to do with her actually furthering herself properly. She is to be educated so that she can become pleasing to the man, so she can get her income. The idea of the income is...
And the education would be more in languages than it would be in like science and history.
No,
well, history, yes,
they
but
were
not
they were
sciences.
encouraged to read a lot of non-fiction books. Fiction was actually quite new, so it didn't really exist yet. But to read histories and even scientists, because they were interested in science, they were very interested, and they wanted the general education that the girl could talk to the guy, basically. But the point of the exercise was to get a somewhat similar level people in monies together, because you needed, if he had £10,000, she should have at least 2,000 or more pounds.
That's how the rich keep the riches together.
That is how you keep your classes together.
Yes.
And that is exactly what Lady Catherine says in her first speech, which was a very good speech. That was actually a sung speech, but it was really good. And then later she repeats it when she comes to Lizzy to ask her not to say yes to Darcy, and basically Lizzy tells her to pound sand, which is fair enough. But that's yes, that's the message of this thing. And my problem in a modern context is there are a couple of things about Jane Austen that don't make me happy in a modern context. For one thing, the mother, if you go into it, the mother is actually the one that is from the different class. She is from trade. That's why Miss Bingley is so upset with Lizzy. Specifically because she knows that her mother is from trade, and that is also, and this is, like I said, Jane Austen wrote this, is why the mother is doing all these faux pas, because she has no idea, because she is from trade. It's a class issue that even Jane Austen bought into.
And because you're saying that she put the mother... she described the mother in that way, and
it's
completely
white trash.
White trash is completely not socially acceptable because she was a lower class,
and it shows because of her actions.
And
that's internalized.
Yes, and that is class system. That is exactly what a class system is. And I think maybe you have to get all the way to the 1920s to start breaking down barriers of class in Western Europe. In Downton Abbey, it's in there. They are actually they're not landed gentry; they are nobility. And they have a massive problem with the various marriages and alliances that are going on.
Yes.
And that's the end of that period. So at that point they are starting to break through. But it's more than a century later than this story was being told. And class system is unbreakable. You will the youngest daughter of the Downton Abbey sisters, she marries a complete commoner from Ireland, which meant that she just had to go to Ireland and forget about it. She would have been sent with money, but it was that was just not on. And to get that whole storyline back into how the heck do we get this guy to be part of our structure takes a couple of seasons.
Yeah,
So.
and a lot of people who read Pride and Prejudice now, and again, let's go to the press release because it says something else on here.
It is known.
Pride and Prejudice is known
from the Universal Pictures film of the same name and the BBC series of the same name.
Yes, I understand why Dutch people would say that, but.
These
that
are
would
if you're going to productions.
if you put this in the United States, take out that line, please, because no. I will stipulate that this musical is a version of the book, a credible version of the book. It is not a credible version of the BBC version or that Universal picture. No, sorry. Please take it out. Thank you.
Well, it's a Dutch press release. They would have to do their own American style press release.
That's my point right now is if you're going to do this version, which has merit, but you have to rework it for an English-speaking audience that has a different relationship to the original story. Dutch people have a different... We have the relationship of the BBC series. That BBC series is prime for us, whereas an English-speaking audience is going to have that book as prime for you, and maybe even that Universal movie, because that is so available for Americans.
Might be the Universal movie. For the UK, it will definitely be the 1995 Pride and Prejudice series.
But still, they're going to see it in a different way than we saw it. We Dutchies, we see something else on the screen than an English person sees on the same screen.
I would also give you that if the 1995 version hadn't existed, the BBC miniseries, Dutch people wouldn't know about Pride and Prejudice.
Absolutely.
We literally would not know it existed. That American film from 1940? No, it's black and white. That doesn't.
That has no life.
I don't know about the UK. I can't speak for the UK.
It's been on BBC. It's been on BBC.
In the Netherlands, it does not. It has no
life.
No notoriety.
And also, because we look at it with a Dutch set of glasses, which is beautifully orange tinted, and Brits will look at it a completely different way. They will literally see a different property.
Yeah.
And like I said, this version has a lot of merit, but it has a different merit than what a English or American person would get out of it. And you'd have to present it differently.
The Pride and Prejudice book as a literature experience and cultural stuff to hang on to on the world stage may be true for countries that hold English language older literature to be like the mainstay of everything else. Like, let's start there first. There are several countries around the world, and I'm not going to name them because I'm going to make mistakes, but they do read English language literature that has, could be as old as this, and they read it, and they read it in school. Pride and Prejudice is not read in school in the Netherlands, certainly not as literature. You can possibly, in English class, which is a foreign language in Dutch school, you can possibly talk to your teacher and say, oh, can I read that for my literature list?
And they will probably say, probably not.
Say it's a bit old and a bit difficult. So if you can get something from Gone with the Wind upwards, that would be better. Although I don't know if they go for Gone with the Wind because it's this thick and you need to read 15 of them. But that's the difference. There's certain parts of the world that have taken English literature into their schools.
It has a pedigree. It makes a pedigree.
Dutch schools need to spend a huge amount of time on Dutch books. And we do not have time. There's no like international literature class. When we learn languages, which is English, French, and German, these are the foreign languages. Then we have Dutch as your own language, which you do a lot of literature in. But in English class, French class, and German class, you're learning English, French, and German.
And you can read if you want.
And the last few years of 4, 5, or 6 years of that, depending on which choices you make, then the last few years you're reading literature. We don't have time for.
And literature by being a book with letters in it. I mean, I did Lord of the Rings for my English final. So there's your literature. Yeah. That's literature for a foreign language.
There's no Shakespeare in English class in a Dutch high school. So and this by extension, this is too close to Shakespeare. It's 200 plus years old.
Yeah, and
it's a difficult read.
It's already difficult for English speakers. Dickens is
more readable than this. So
and even if I come to my HAVO teacher with a Dickens, they would have tried to talk me out of it.
Yeah, basically you're gonna ask for 20th century stuff.
Yes,
and above. So that's the thing, it's a non-entity in this little part of the world, and I would imagine a lot of countries that don't have English as any sort of basis.
It's a wonderful story as such, as an evocative story, like a Romeo. I mean, it's not Romeo and Juliet, but it's a Romeo and Juliet core story that is fun to do, which is what this musical did. Was the funness of the story.
Pride and Prejudice is one of the stories that is the basis of all romance plots. Yeah. Jane Eyre is another one that has the basis of all romance plots, and it is a
Gothic romance. Yes, it's a Gothic
romance because it has Gothic elements, but the basis is a little similar. She is low gentry class and is impoverished, and much more impoverished than these girls are. And she's also lost her parents, which is a good start of the story, losing the parents, because basically then then you got something to talk about, and then there's the land owning man she starts to work for. That's going to be the big love interest, because which men has she ever that's going to be remotely eligible has she ever met? None. And that's another thing they don't say, but they show quite well if you look at it in this play, is there are no men to meet. That's what the girls are talking about at the beginning. Is, finally, people are moving into the next door. Next door is like many fields over.
And then the father has to go and meet them because the girls are not allowed to go and meet them.
The mother can't go with a little pie and a cup of sugar and say, a nice
welcome to the neighborhood.
No, I can't do that. So the dad, this is all protocol. So the dad has to go and meet them, and then the dad has to have the wherewithal to invite them for tea or whatever it is.
Which he does, thank God.
He does, but they were worried.
Because he was playing games.
The mother was worried.
It's very easy to rile up the mother, so everybody riles up the mother.
The actress who played the mother was so good. So good.
There are some things that I really, really, really liked about the production. The way of the people moving on stage. A stage, again, the stage is different from a film. You have an enormous stage which is empty a lot of the times, because if the action is just in the middle, if two people in the middle, what do you do with the rest of the stage? But they use the side stage, they use that stage, they use upstage, they use downstage. I loved it.
And they had these blocks that they moved around, which were steps.
And very simple
so you could go up and
pieces.
Down, but in various ways in the various parts of the stage.
And it was a little bit of reference to the Regency time, which was they were very interested in architecture and Greek architecture. So this had these architectural elements very simply.
I was wondering if they were going to do anything with that.
Other than move them around and have them be the different scenes. They
also cleverly used them, so the girls, the women in the play, were moving them around as they went from scene to scene, and sometimes inside a scene. And then I think behind it they were hanging up
the
their
coats.
little clothes.
They're hanging up Darcy and
so
his hat.
Darcy's stuff has to be over there because next time I've come around and I have to go into the Darcy clothing again. And the changeover, the posture, as you said, of when they change over to each character, but especially the men, so good,
and
so
then,
good.
Another combination for the form dancing. So this is 18. The book is from 1813, but it's actually written. The majority of the story is actually written 10 years earlier because she didn't have. She had problems getting it published. But 1813, that is just on the cusp of form dancing versus waltz dancing. The waltz dancing was not going to be in Marriton, so everything is form dancing, which works really well with these ladies who are, half of them are gentlemen, and then one moment, so you have like 3 people dancing together, and there's two gentlemen and 1 lady, and they do a form dance, and then suddenly there's 2 ladies and 1 gentleman, and it works so well, and it was love it. Yes. And the form dancing is one of those things that really, that's
and I think you can't, especially after the 1995 TV series, you can't not do the dance.
Yes.
Where they meet it, but it's also, I would imagine, in the book it is an enormous scene.
And I think they have like a bunch of balls in this. They have the big ball at Marriton, which is that scene, but they have a bunch of different ones as well. They have a couple of different dances.
Well, this happens the same in Little Women, which was written more like the
1860s.
Yeah, 1860s, so a lot later. But it's still important for those girls, which they're not, I think, landed gentry, but they are too high up to be the local, local normal people that go to the local normal.
They are the class of landed gentry, but they don't have that much land.
Have nothing, and they
have some land. Yeah, they have some land. That means
but
landed
that's
gentry.
It, and they need to meet people. They need to meet peer girls, but also because most of them aren't going to school. Only the youngest is still going to school, and halfway through the story in the book, they take her out of school because there's yet another. There's no mandatory school in the 19th century for anybody, including the Bennets. And there was a video on the background of the Jane Austen stories. Where do these girls get their education? Well, they can either get it at like a one of those horrible schools like the one Jane Eyre went to, or they can get it from a governess, which costs money, or mummy. And this case, these girls, mummy and the books. Dad is collecting books, and so that's why mummy is absolutely incompetent.
So it's only what mummy knows and what daddy. I think maybe Lizzy is learning something from daddy,
and this is how
not much.
Class system keeps itself safe. Because if you make sure that the people who aren't quite up to that class never get access to the things that could get them actually socially and economically advanced, this is class system.
But it's exactly what My Fair Lady is about.
Yeah.
And
it's breaking the class system. And then we're literally in 1910 again.
In 1910.
So you need another century before you even can think about breaking the class system.
And it got her into trouble because she was standing in her with, I now have an education. What can I do with it now?
Yeah.
So that's the same problem that Lizzy has. She has some education. It's not going.
And she has a lot of brains.
She has a lot of brains. Yes. She has some education, but it will buy her absolutely nothing getting her anymore because it buys her literally nothing. All she can buy is, superlative term, is getting a husband. That is the only thing she can do in life, is get a husband.
So that's one of the things that was clear in this and in every version, because that's how the story goes, is that she gets to say no. And she sometimes...
But she's taking a risk here.
Yes, she's taking the risk that Charlotte is showing. Charlotte is the older her, is like, okay, she says, I'm 27, I am an old maid. I don't have any more chances. Nobody will introduce me to a guy, and I missed it. And so you need to get me to this ball. in other versions that was not her disposition, but I thought it was a very good way of showing if Lizzy doesn't go through and actually do something about. After a while, she does have a lot of guys interested in her, but she does. And then she has some choices to make. But if she doesn't put herself out there to actually meet any of them, and them coming after her, that's really the situation you do want yourself in. You want several interested parties, and then you choose.
You can choose, but that's a luxury situation.
That's the only strength she has, is to say no, with the risk that she will turn into a Charlotte that doesn't get a Mr. What's he again? Mr. Collins.
Mr. Collins.
Which you have to have. The patience for Mr. Collins.
This Charlotte has dogs. She has the patience for Mr. Collins.
Yeah, she's going to be out with the dogs, and that was in several other versions. She's also has ways. She
makes sure that she's the inside and he's the outside person, or he's with Lady Catherine de Bourgh, is somewhere else.
But if the other thing is that if you don't do that, you end up in your brother's attic.
Yeah, like is he Jane Austen.
Generous enough to give you a little corner in a room somewhere.
And the infamous corner in her brother's. Jane Austen ended up in her brother's house because her man died before she could marry him, and then there was no one else, and then something else happened to the man, because I think the brother was actually in trade, so she was a little bit lower. Mm-hmm. And then the money went, and then they had to sell her desk, the one that she was writing on, so she had no desk to write stories on. This is the pits. I mean, this is the pits.
And then if you say,
and
okay,
she cannot
has
earn
no desk. She literally has nothing but the clothes on her back. And in Jane Eyre, that's clear. When she leaves
that's what women have.
Yeah. They have the clothes on their back, and they better be good clothes. Jane ends up having 3 dresses, and they're described in the book. And that's because she's a teacher, and she needs a dress for the teaching days, a dress for Sunday, and she needs a proper dress to present herself.
Yeah. Evening dress.
And but that was even at the school. She had 3 dresses, and she takes the 3 dresses, which is the whole suitcase, that she really can't carry. When she runs away from Fairfax Hall, she goes with nothing, just the clothes on her back, and she has a little bag of money, but she loses it in the coach, or she has to the coach itself is all that she has. So she ends up effectively destitute.
Yeah. I think if you're going to make this for the stage, this is a good modern interpretation of the material.
It's accessible to the woman of now. A couple of women, younger women. Okay, I'm in my 50s. Okay, I'm just saying. So younger women, as in maybe 20 to 30-year-old. Sitting next to me on that side, and they were laughing at all the right spots, and they were having such a ball. Yeah. There were a lot of women in the hall. It definitely was woman heavy, but there were some men. I think this is the right way to approach such a book, and say, just like approach Barbie with a modern vision. If you're gonna do same old of what they were doing in '58, then nobody's gonna watch. Nobody's interested. But let's bring it into the now. The end of Green Gables, which was turned into Anne with an E on the Canadian television, that was a modern way of presenting Anne of Green Gables, and they prefaced it with the song, and the song says you're ahead by a century. That's the pivotal line in the opening song. It's not a musical, but it's like the credit song, and so they're saying it. We're going to be modern.
But because that's television, the presentation is different. I would actually call this fusion. This is modern fusion, because not an issue. I like the music, but I have to re-hear it again because it takes me a couple of times with music. So it's probably really good, but
it was really good.
Okay.
It was really good.
It didn't annoy me as such, which is always a good indication for me. For the first time when I hear something and it doesn't annoy me, that's usually good. But then I have to get used to it. But it is modern music, and with a pretty modern look, even though, yes, it's got ruffles and stuff like that, the clothing and the architecture is still, because abstract on stage, because stage is always abstract.
Yeah.
It's stylized. So I would call this fusion more than and with an E is much more practical and gritty. This is fusion. As such, I liked it a lot. If you say this is a very credible, accurate depiction of Pride and Prejudice, no, this is an interpretation of it. But yeah, I liked it a lot.
It's an interpretation because you can't do Pride and Prejudice in an hour and a half. It's
that also, there's a lot of compressing of scenes, which means that you get a different pace than the book. The book is very drawn out. There's a lot of a little whisper here, a little whisper there, and then conclusion from the little whisper, and another little whisper.
There's also a point where you say, we have done that. The TV series did that.
Yeah, but then it rightly assumes that you have that as your background.
I think the whoever did write it, possibly English language person, and then whoever translated it did a very good job translating, and that's hard. But they did, if the original of this music and the script comes from English language.
It's Dutch. The music is Dutch. It's original Dutch music.
Oh yeah. That's true. Well, then who knows?
I want to make a special commendation for the use of the word parvenu.
Yeah.
Lady Catherine de Bourgh uses that word. Yeah. Basically, it's a Dutch word and it means upstart. It sort of means despicable upstart because it's if you look it up, it says upstart, but it parvenu means despicable upstart, and the choice of having Lady Catherine de Bourgh saying it to Lizzy was choice. Thank you. Sometimes translations are. That's why I think that. Yeah. That bit was translated from a pretty good translation.
I thought practically everything was translated amazingly well.
Yeah. As for the construction of the musical, in a theater, the music, the sound mixing is always a little bit harder than it is for a film. You know, they get better studios for film, and you're in a theater, so the mix was a little bit poorly for me. So it means that ensemble singing is harder to understand. However, I think they realized this at some point because almost every time after there was a longer song, there's usually like one or two lines to repeat whatever was in the song, as in plot points. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And it's like one of those practical things that you need to do on the stage, I think. Because it can't be 100%. It's a traveling show. If it was like a stationary show in its own theater, then you can do it all to perfection. But here it wasn't to perfection. Which is... That's part and parcel of going to a play. It's different. It is different from going to a film, and also an appalling lack of close-ups. Seriously, you have to do something about that.
Close-ups?
We want some close-ups, please.
We had good seats though.
We had pretty good seats.
Yeah.
We were sort of in the middle, right frontal view.
Yeah,
so
middle center. And not far back at all, and but also not like too close.
Yeah.
So.
On that note, I would urge anybody who's part of the production, please make a video recording, please, because these
Film
things is so ephemeral. Like I would like to listen to the music again. I would like to actually re-see this, but without having to go again, and the price point
Get on
of the seat is
or something like that. And have them come in and because this is it is in the line of the Barbie movie, and it's like this is women's voices. This is own voices. The thing states we're talking about Elizabeth's story. We're not talking about Darcy's story or everybody else's story. This is Lizzy's story, and we need more female-centric but female-voiced things, and it is not her. Lizzy's storyline was not to get married. Her storyline was to find out who she could be in this world that actually resonated with who she was herself, and that's very well done. That needs seeing. That needs seeing to a wider audience. And that's why I'm saying film it, get the NPO, which is like, Dutch public station, get them to put it on television. The only reason we here know about a Dutch musical called The Wondrous Cure of Ebenezer Scrooge.
Miraculous Cure, ja.
The Miraculous Cure of Ebenezer Scrooge, yes, translations.
De wonderbare genezing van Ebenezer Scrooge.
De wonderbare genezing van Ebenezer Scrooge, which is of course a Christmas carol, but it was a Dutch version, and it was a beautiful translation, and it was a beautiful reimagining, and it was also set in the times, exactly like this Pride and Prejudice. It was set and framed in the times, and they did it the Dutch way. Very accessible, lots of really cool songs, and some things had to be slightly tweaked. But the only reason us sitting here know about this is because it was on television in 1979, and it was repeated in
1990-something.
90-something. Somebody put it on a videotape, and then somebody passed it around. It's not out on DVD. It's not being repeated every Christmas on television. Why not?
It should be, but
it should be on the Nostalgia channel. Why is it not on there?
And your ephemeral.
This is the KRO. Please bring it out. Put it on television.
And your ephemeral Pride and Prejudice here that we saw in a theater yesterday. If nobody puts it on tape, it will flutter away and go away.
Well,
and
somebody will put it in America, and they will make a film, and then it won't be you.
But it will be a different version, because like I said, you're going to have to either the people who wrote this rework it for an English audience, or they get the first performance and they get told to rework it for an English audience, because
an American audience even.
For an American audience, because as written is very Dutch, and it resonates with Dutch people. Elizabeth's England is poor, is not going to resonate well with Brits or Americans.
No, but Americans would probably.
Yeah, but Elizabeth, it's not.
Yeah, so I'm glad it's not going to the UK. It's going to the US. That you have more chance there.
But and please get a native speaker in
to translate it.
To look over whatever you translate.
To look over the results.
And then do what they say, because they know.
Yes, and don't translate it back to Dunglish.
Our English is pretty damn good, but even if I would actually want to publish anything in England or in America, I'd get a native speaker to look it over. I am not.
I did.
Exactly, because you're gonna get your ass handed to you, really. Seriously.
Yeah.
So, yep, I loved it.
And to get back to women in drag.
Yes.
Can we have lots and lots more of those, please?
Oh yes.
I just
one little niggly.
You got a niggly on the women in drag.
Yes.
I got
you have Lizzy, and then you have Darcy in drag, and then you have a lovely scene, and then a shoot, and they don't.
Yeah, I'd forgotten. I mean, I'd not forgotten, but I didn't react to that. There was no kiss.
There was no kiss.
Put the kiss in, please.
Please.
So
If you
good.
guys want to know
so
how
good.
it is done, you are not. They are not the first people to put women in drag, and there's another company who's been doing it for 110 years or more in Japan, called Takarazuka. If you go look it up, they will have scenes on show you how to have two ladies. Who are one is not a lady, or one is a lady but not supposed to, and how to kiss on stage without actually kissing. So,
and then there is also, as far as I'm concerned, just kiss, smooch those lips together.
Yes, please.
It's the 2024 now.
It's 2024.
We're ready for some smoochies.
Yes.
But that was so cool. Yeah. I'm also looking forward to whatever the next project of this group of female performance is.
Please.
We're really curious.
I hope this. I have no idea if this is actually a set group. I hope they are. They are fun.
So. It's such a good dynamic.
But even if you like pick something outrageous, which is just guys, and have it be all girls, why not?
Hey, gay pirates are in.
But like a proper one of my issues that I had with Pride and Prejudice choice is picking an existing property. I understand why. I understand, but you could write your own, and I understand why you don't want to write your own, because then you have to market it. I mean, you get the free marketing of there is the BBC series, and there's this old movie. That's why it's in the press release, because you get bumps on seats that way.
The title alone, but then because the title is in English and the musical is in Dutch.
That's.
So now I'm in the Dutch book world, and especially in science fiction, fantasy, but especially in science fiction, they really often want to put an English title because it sounds so good.
Yeah, but
and then you open it up and you're going, oh, it's in Dutch. And even for me as a Dutch person, because I read both languages, I'm like, that throws me off. And I think it's you're also missing the audience. I'm not saying this, in this case that was wrong, because I can't judge that. This is a play. But in the case of books, if you see a Dutch title, then somebody who reads Dutch is going to be intrigued. Of course, the title has to be good. That's the second part of making a title. But if the title is in English, most Dutch people won't open it up if they're looking for a Dutch book to read. So it actually throws your audience that you are aiming for out. Yep. And I can't say whether that happened in this case. But
it happens with Dutch movies.
Have a question.
It happens with Dutch movies, because the Dutch movies have been doing that, giving it an English title, and then it turns out to be a Dutch movie, which is not what an English-speaking audience is looking for.
Yeah, there's a Dutch movie called Bride Flight. And that was the reaction I got from it. It's a really good movie, absolutely worth watching. And I understand why it is in English. However, the concept of bride flight sounds good. See, I'm almost starting to speak Dutch now. It sounds good to a Dutch ear, but it means nothing in English, and it also doesn't.
No, it
doesn't resonate.
It means something else. They meant
it doesn't. The bride flight is the bride is running away.
Yeah, in
from
English.
The groom. But also, it is then you got Runaway Bride. That's a much better title. So it doesn't just sound good. It misses the sound good part, and it also misses the plot part.
The film is actually about the traveling of Dutch people in the Dutch ladies, brides in the 1950s by air to Australia to New Zealand to get married. So the bride flight is an actual airplane.
So it's almost
carrying
mail order bride situation.
It's a mail order bride situation. So and bride flight is the absolute wrong title.
Is carrying the brides, and in the Dutch you can say that. In English you cannot. This is why it's so difficult to make a title in English. Yep. And I would advise against it for every single Dutch production ever.
No, you get if you want. Yeah, don't for a Dutch production that is in Dutch. You should have a Dutch title. I would have been so happy if they had gone with the actual title of the book. There's two translations for Pride and Prejudice, which is an older translation is Trots voordeel, which is a very dry translation, but it doesn't alliterate.
It doesn't ring.
There is another translation which is newer, Waan en Eigenwaan.
Ah,
That is gorgeous.
Nice.
However, there's a copyright on that one because I think it's 1980. But you can add.
No, titles are not copyrighted.
Ah, okay. Waan en Eigenwaan translates as delusion and self-obsessiveness, self-centeredness. So, but it alliterates waan, eigenwaan.
And that would work really well for this, what we just saw. They showcase these two things so well in this show.
What they could have done was say, waan en eigenwaan, a Pride and Prejudice musical.
Yes, yeah, musical. Yes.
You could have done that, so you have both worlds.
They did that with Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story. Because it fell into the Bridgerton the Bridgerton television universe, and for whatever reason they couldn't use the Bridgerton name.
And yeah.
So
I don't know. I loved it, but it's got issues. It's got issues.
I have no issues with the issues. I just plain loved it. It was like I was sitting there going, oh, amazing, and I may have cried.
And it's
a couple of times.
Great. I mean, absolutely great bit of theatre. It was absolutely worth the money.
If this is the start of the future of theatre, then count me in. You know, that's what I want to see. I enjoy like traditional productions, but this has that
future, the fusion of modernness.
Yes, it has that thing that the Barbie movie has that takes you from like, okay, we get it. All of this happened, and now we are going to the future. We are going to go there, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to call a spade, which is probably, I should probably bleep that. A bleep. And we're going to a much more open, understanding future for everyone, and especially with the Barbie movie and several things that have happened with nominations and stuff. We know that women need more recognition.
Yeah.
So might as well throw the men out of that, out of your group, and say, let's just do it. Let's show them what we can do, and this group does that.
And the next production is a male-centric story with all girls in it.
Yes, I vote for gay pirates. Well, that's just me. Do whatever you like.
They can be straight pirates as well.
I'm sure that. Well, I would love the kissy in there.
Oh, well, you can do the kissy even straight if you have the girls and the boys be the same.
Well, if they're both girls and they're all in trouser rolls and then they kiss, then that I think that is probably the epitome of what I would like to see. Yes. Please do that.
And put it on DVD, please.
Make a recording. Put it on YouTube. If the NPO and all these other people don't want to have it, then make your own production. Film it. Make sure it's not forgotten because it's special. It is unique. And even if they make an American version and then they film that, then it won't be you, and it won't be this particular production. And
if you want to see the play, hopefully there's a couple of
more chances.
Yes. We will try. I promise faithfully we'll try. But
to get it online fast enough.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you find a production like this that sounds a bit off the wall and has some classics in it and whatnot, and there's a lot of women, go and watch it.
Always support your local play starring females.
Yes. Or not so local.
Or not so
national ones.
International.
Yes. And especially as we've just seen with the Barbie movie, that it doesn't always get recognized when women do good stuff, when they make innovative stuff and they make current and if a man had done it, everybody would be talking about it and be up for like 15 Oscars. So, girl power!
Yay!
Women power and those who identify as female.
Yes. Also, any other woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
And my opinion.
And
And
we're
we're
sticking
sticking
to
to
it.